Well, hello everybody. Today we have a very special video on the channel, and I'm going to try to keep this intro short so we can get right into it. But Camera Tim and I have been planning a color page workshop in DaVinci Resolve. The color page is something that has always eluded me, and I feel like I understand some things, but I don't ever have a clear sense of direction. So I've been talking with Tim to walk me through how a professional or a grown-up or an adult would use the color page. So that's what this is. And before you skip ahead, there's a couple disclaimers I want to mention. One, this was recorded live. This workshop, seminar, whatever you want to call it, was intended to be interactive. I wanted to give people in the community an opportunity to ask questions along with me as we went along. So what that means is a couple things. For one, the recording quality isn't going to be super crisp. Is it going to detract from you learning things in the color page? I don't think so, but if that is an issue for you, I totally understand. For twos, you might notice that there might be a few technical issues throughout. This is Tim and I's first go around at doing something like this, so I've gone ahead and gone through the VODs and done my best to clean things up where I can, remove sections that didn't feel needed, and mute things when they felt like they needed to be muted. But again, there might be a few moments that feel a bit weird in the recording. And if you want the full unedited recording, I'll go ahead and leave a link to Tim's full stream right here, as well as all of his socials and handles in the description and in the pinned comment below. And the last thing that I'll mention is in the bottom right hand corner, you'll notice it'll either say Wampus POV or Tim POV. We each gave each other access to each other's desktop throughout this recording and this stream so that I could share Tim's screen as well as sharing my own. So that way people could follow along in my stream, and then I could also show people what I was doing and how I was processing things. Again, in the edit, I've gone ahead and done my best to swap to each when it feels appropriate, or even just swap to Tim's stream when it feels appropriate. If you guys want to be involved in a future one of these, because there will be a second go around, the Discord is the best place to be. It's where I tend to hang out more often. It's where I do a lot of my alerts and notifications. I try to stray away from social media. So please come by, join the Discord. And without further ado, please enjoy the Coloring with Tim workshop.
Here's the color page. So we're going to start by talking about the tools that you're probably going to use the most. And that is the primaries tools over here. If the stream lags, sorry. But your primaries tools here are what you're going to spend probably 90% of your time on when you're in Resolve. So your lift, gamma, gain, and offset are basically your primary color tools that allow you to maneuver exposure or color using different types of math. So normally when you hear lift, gamma, gain, and offset explained, you hear lift adjusts primarily the shadows and then the highlights the least. Your gain is your highlights the most and your shadows the least. Your gamma is like your midtones the most. And then offset is everything equally. Now, there's a couple things going on here. One, let's look at our waveform over here. If you go over to this spot on your in Resolve, you'll see the little waveform button here. If you click on this and then open up your waveform, and I can maximize this just so it's easier to see, and I can show you all of them at the same time, but we're primarily going to look at the waveform here. Your waveform is actually what's showing your exposure in the entire image from left to right. So meaning whatever is showing on this left side is what's showing up here, and what's showing up on the right side is showing up over here.
So by default, when you open up can you walk through how to open up your scopes and get it to look like that again?
Yes. So on your scopes, if you go to this button right here, for some reason it's hiding my mouse when I zoom in. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but
it's the expand button.
Yeah. If you look right here, if you click on the expand right here, then you can extend it. And then that'll give you by default, it's a 4-way view. And really the two that I use the most often are your waveform and vector scope. Sometimes I'll use Parade as well, but I'll explain exactly what these do, because these are actually really simple tools to read, but they are also very crucial, because the reason scopes are very, very important, no matter what kind of monitors you have, what setup you have, is these scopes will always tell you the same exact thing no matter what kind of computer you're on. So you're always going to get the same exact data here, as opposed to like if you look at something on a computer monitor or a laptop or MacBook or your phone, your image is probably going to look a little bit different on every single one, right? But on your scopes, you always see the same information on the scope. So it's a way to actually have a very distinctive reference for or a very defined reference. So the waveform showing our image from left to right, but it's also showing the exposure of the image from black to white. So if we look at our waveform here, we'll see that it's showing 0 to 100, and different waveforms will show it differently. Those are just kind of, I don't want to say arbitrary numbers, but you can change them to different types of numbers, but it doesn't really matter.
Tim, do you mind going back real quick? So when you're looking at the vector scopes, I feel like one of the things you said that's really important is what the main reason you should learn how to use these is because your computer monitor isn't to be trusted, correct? Unless you have a calibrated monitor. So I think
so actually, just to expand on that, so like, because that is something I want to mention real quick, is like, even if you have a calibrated monitor, even calibration is never like 100% perfect. I mean, there's a reason that people who are, you know, full-time colorists, and Darren can attest to this too, like the big studios that need like the absolute best monitor are spending like 30 grand for just the monitor. Just the monitor, $30,000 monitors, because
that's how much you make in like 1 week.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but there's a reason they're tuned to that much, because they have a very, very specific type of tuning that they need to give you the most accurate real life picture possible. That your normal everyday monitors can't actually physically they actually can't physically reproduce that information. So, anyways. So if we look at our waveform here, so we have 0 represents black in this instance, 100 represents white. If you're seeing something else, like if you're seeing like 0 to 1023 or some other metric or something, just know you're looking at the exact same thing. It's just a different way of measuring it. Okay. So you'll notice that if we push our gain up, for instance, and then we hit this point here where all these, like, we see these flat lines right up 100, and we look at our image here, like that's the white spots in the sky. Those are fully flat white, and we can see that reflected in our waveform. So we can actually see that represented here, and it and the opposite is true too. If we move our lift all the way down, we start hitting the bottom, we'll see those little actually fully black spots on our screen, and that are represented here in the waveform as well. So that's an easy way to see if you've clipped colors, or if you've lost information or whatever. The waveform will give you all of that information. So it's a legit visual of where, yes, the chill space, you're exactly right. It's a legit visual of where colors are at in the image. And on top of that, with the waveform, you'll see that there's red, green, and blue. It's showing you that shift of like what color that specifically is, and how much red, green, and blue energy is in that specific spot. So if I was to show this, you can also, if you click on this tab up here, to pull down the drop down menu, you'll see where it says display qualifier focus. If you select this, and then you have your qualifier open on this end, you can actually hover over the image, and you'll notice the circles on the waveform. That's showing you exactly what pixel you're looking at, and how much red, green, and blue is in that specific pixel. So if I hover over this red flag, you'll see that there's, on the waveform, you'll see it's like the red circle is the highest, the green and blue are the lowest, and that's because this is a red spot.
So Tim, what do you mean by like clipping your colors? What is happening when you're talking about that?
Good question. So if we're talking about clipping colors, basically what's happening there, and usually clipping happens in camera, but that's like, let's say I recorded an image and I came in and the image looked like this. And there's this flat line here. You don't have to do this part. I'm just doing this as an example here. But let me, do I have ownership of this timeline? No, I should. Oh yeah, here we go. So let's do that. Compound clip, and I go back to color. So let's say I brought it in like this. And this is the information I was presented with. If I try to bring that down, I guess it doesn't do that here because it's actually retaining the information. So this is actually a bad example. But basically what would happen is this would remain flatlined. You would not be able to recover that detail. That detail is completely gone. So when something is clipped, that means that there's absolutely no information there.
So you can't, like, if you're looking at the clouds in the sky and something's white, like you can't regain any of like the grays or anything in between. It's just like a solid white for everything.
Yeah, that's anything that's hit this flat line up at the top or even at the bottom. There's different ways that there's different. Let me put it this way: black and white clip differently. Because white means too much information, or like too much light, actually, is a better and more accurate way of putting it. 0 is the lack of light, which is where you get noise from.
Okay.
So that's kind of the difference, and we'll get into that when we explore different ways we can fix all this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and decompose this and go back to the original. Don't worry about that. All right, so let me reset this. Okay. So that's basically what the waveform does. Really, really useful tool. The other one that we're going to primarily look at is called our vector.
Dom, yes. In essence, yes. If you have a poor recording, a lot of times there's nothing you can do.
How saturated or how vivid your colors are at any given point. So this is showing us our full color spectrum here. This is showing us I'll zoom in here. This is showing us our red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. Because in a light space, there's, we have our monitors, which we see we have red, green, and blue, right? Well, the opposite of red, green, and blue is cyan, magenta, yellow. So the opposite of red is cyan, the opposite of green is magenta, the opposite of blue is yellow. And that actually comes kind of like from film, which we'll get, and print, which we'll get to in a little bit. But to show how this works, just from a practical perspective, so let's say I'm just going to shift my offset over here. If I shift it up towards red, you'll see as the image becomes more red, you'll see that point moving much more towards the red. If I shift it down towards green, you'll see it move towards green, towards cyan, blue, magenta, yellow. You get the gist. So the other thing that this vector scope has that's really useful, if we pull this drop down as well, and when this is closed down, all this stuff is still accessible in this window. So you can still find everything here. But what I find really useful is you can actually hit this 2x zoom, and this will give you an easier way to see your colors. It basically magnifies the signal. There's also this skin tone indicator, and we'll play with this when we get to the interviews portion, but this is not a rule. This is a guideline. I want to stress that this skin tone indicator is not a rule. It is a guideline. There we go. So, but this is a good way to see like where your skin tones are at any given point. So you have this nice little line here. Okay.
Sleeves had a question that I'm also curious as well. On your vector scope, are true white and black dead center of the vector scope?
Yes, and this is a good time to explain it. So let's say I bring my saturation all the way down. Now I just have a solid white dot in the middle. There's no color. If I push saturation all the way up, you see how it goes, like starts to blow up. Yeah. So again, this is showing like more saturated, no saturation. So that's your vector scope in a nutshell. So, and again, you can do the qualifier focus as well to see what point you're looking at. So if I pull up that qualifier thing again, and I point it at any point here, you can see that circle is showing what exact color on the vector scope or what pixel I'm looking at. So if I look at the blue sky, it shifts over towards blue. If I go to the red flag, it shifts up towards red. If I look at the green, shifts over towards green / yellow. Yep. Now your parade is basically the same exact thing as the waveform, except the parade will split your red, green, and blue signals instead of overlaying them on top of each other. So that's really all that means. So parade is really easy to understand if you understand the waveform. It's just a different way of viewing the same thing. And then your histogram is basically how prevalent a pixel is at any given value. So 100 is white, 0 is black, and then so this is saying how much green you have at this spot, how much red you have at this spot, how much blue you have at this spot. I find the histogram a little bit less useful, but some people really like it. But it's there, and now you know what it does. All right. So now, are there any other questions before we move on to actually talking about the color management aspect? Because we're going to talk a little about color management before we actually go into like the whole grading thing.
Okay, so I have so for my own understanding, when we're talking about reading and using scopes, primarily, would you say like your wave? Do you prefer the waveform over the parade? Do you use both? Like, I'm sure you'll talk about it more, but like, do you kind of have all 4 scopes open at once? Do you like hot swap to them while you're working on specific things? Because I feel like I can probably read it for the most part. It's more of like knowing when to use which scope when.
Yeah, so I usually have them. So because I run multiple monitors, it just automatically has. So if I did dual screen right now, so I'll show this on stream here. So if I did dual screen and I got to switch my secondary display to which monitor is it? I think it's this one. Yes, I got it right. So if I switch over to here, yeah. So if you see on this screen, it just kind of automatically lays all 4 of them out for me. I don't have to have them pulled out in a separate window. But what I will do is the first thing I'll do is gravitate towards waveform, because the first thing I do is make sure my exposure is correct in any given image. And then vector scope is what I do when I'm trying to figure out my color balance. So they do have different use cases, and waveform, you can actually still kind of technically figure out color balance stuff, but the vector scope is a much more valid tool for that, just because it's you're looking at your colors and how vivid they are and where they're at specifically. Waveform, it's a little harder to tell. So waveform I use for just monitoring exposure at any given point in the image. Vector scope I use for monitoring where my colors are at.
Okay. Did you see Gengar's question?
Gengar's question. I didn't really understand 10 parts. Yes, kind of. So the way to think about the 0 to 10, or again, it's an arbitrary number essentially, but you're basically looking at the exposure of the image from black to white. So if let's just say I brought this whole entire thing down to black, then all my waveform is here at the bottom, right? Oh, you can't even see that. Hold on. So the waveform's at the very bottom, right? And there's absolutely nothing in the image. And now you see everything's up here at the top because everything is white. And then if I, reset this, now I'm seeing everything in between. So the brighter the pixels are, the higher it's going to be on here. The lower the value of pixels are, the lower it's going to be on the waveform. Hopefully that explains it a little bit better.
Does the 0 and 100, do those represent value, luminance, brightness, luminance? Okay.
Luminance and brightness in this instance, you can consider them interchangeable.
Okay.
But because you can change them. So like if you're looking at a 10-bit scale, this is what it would look like. So it would look like 0 to 1023, because that's how many shades of color there are in a 10-bit scale. And a 12-bit scale, it's like 0 to 4095. And then you have other metrics.
Oh.
But again, they're all measuring the same thing.
Okay. So
percentage is just the easiest one to read for anybody that's like somewhat new to this, because then you can just like look at, all right, if it's at 0, that means black. If it's 100, that's 100%. So the waveforms, once you get the highlights up without hitting the top, or the same for the shadows, or how else is it used? It's used, I mean, that's part of what it's used for. It's just used for monitoring your exposure and getting any point of the image to where you want your exposure to be. So let's say you want your skin tones to be at around 60%, which usually skin tones are typically on a regularly exposed image, usually lands anywhere between the 50 and 70% range. Again, depends on skin tone, because everybody's skin tone is a little bit different. So like some actually land better down to like the 30 to 40 range. Some land better near 80. It just depends on this person's skin tone. But that's generally what it's used. That's generally what it's used for. Is just monitoring your exposure throughout the whole image, making sure everything is properly exposed and you're not clipping anything. So there's a lot of use cases for it. And the more you use it, and once you actually start feeling how the waveform works, it'll make a lot more sense. Hopefully that clears some of the stuff up. Now we can go into color management if there's not any other questions about that specifically.
I think I'm okay with scopes for the most part. It's more of just like using them with purpose. Yeah, and again, it just takes getting used to it. And once you feel, again, I'm going to emphasize the word feel, because that's a lot of what color is just feeling your image. You'll feel how the waveforms and vector scopes are treating the image when you, or not how they're treating it, how they're reading the image as you're moving it. So clipping is when you lose data. So like there's no information there. It's just pure white or pure black. That's what clipping is. Okay, so color management. Now, I'm going to go full screen for a second. Actually, no, I'm not going to go full screen. I'll keep it here. All right, so you'll notice that we have a flat-looking image here. And you'll notice I'm starting with a lot of this conceptual stuff because it's going to help us understand how we actually use our tools a little bit later. So you'll notice we have a flat-looking image here, and that's because this is not actually what the image looks like. Now, try and stay with. Hopefully, you guys can stay with me for this one, because this kind of can feel a little bit confusing. But if you've ever heard the term log footage or Rec 709 or all this stuff, the whole thing with shooting flat images, or what is considered log space, is you're actually capturing well, not necessarily capturing, but you're recording information that your displays can't actually physically show. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to pull up. You don't have to pull up this part. I'm just going to show this for example here. All right, so I'm going to look at this thing right here, right? Let me see if I can show. Okay, I'm gonna take this grid off because it's not important. Dom,
okay.
That's not bad advice for just first learning.
This little curve,
but I wouldn't use it as like a rule of thumb.
This represents what our eyes can physically see. Okay, so this is a representation. Here, I'll pull up an image online just so it's easier to see. And you don't have to understand how all these triangles and all this stuff works. It's not really important. But what is important is, so here, this is a better example here. So you see this big, huge piece of color. Everything that's like actually in color represents what our eyes can physically see. Now, if we take a look back at this, you'll see this smaller triangle inside of here. This smaller triangle called Rec 709, this represents what our displays can physically show.
Oh, okay. And so that triangle changes based off of what your like what would you call it? The space that you're editing on or rendering to?
Yeah, so that's why everybody says, like, do Rec 709, Gamma 2.4. The Gamma is just your exposure curve, but Rec 709 is the color space that your monitors. There's also like P3 and a couple other ones that are similar that other displays use. But for the most part, vast majority of the displays that you're looking at are showing Rec 709 because that's what they are physically capable. There's actually like physical limitations to how displays are actually able to render things. So when your cameras capture light, I should say, it's capturing, they all have a different way of doing it, which is what makes this like really confusing. But let's just take, if you're doing Sony S-Log3 for an example, or you're capturing the Sony S-Log Gamma, whatever, that's what it's capturing. So this is capturing stuff that, like, it's some of this, like, our eyes can't even physically see some of the colors that it captures.
How did you do that again? How did you swap to the...
I clicked on this and then went additional gamut. And again, okay. You guys don't have to do this part. I'm just doing this purely for representation. And there's a big reason why I'm showing this. But, we can go and let's look at Panasonic's V gamut. So it's like slightly different. It's capturing different colors. Or if we go to like Canon's, Like Canon's capturing other stuff. So this is
Whoa,
why
Canon's is big.
Well, it looks big, but it's like an exponential thing, so it's not quite as big
I
as
have
you
the
think.
same
So,
problem.
anyways, there you go. That's the spirit. All right. So, but this is the whole reason for showing you guys this, and then also this is DaVinci wide gamut, and it's also very massive as well. This is our working space, which we'll talk about in a bit. But anyways, I show all of this to let you guys know that like what's happening when you are bringing a log state image into Resolve and you look at something that's really flat. You're not actually looking at the real image that it was captured. You're looking at something that's like your display is looking at this wide space, and now it's just going to clamp it down into this Rec 709 triangle, which is why it looks so flat. Now, if anybody here has ever heard of color space transforms, this is how we work with that, because Resolve can see all the data. It's all in there. But it doesn't have a way to represent it because it has no idea intuitively, unless it's a raw image. It has no idea intuitively like what this is. So we have to look. Log is a recording hack. Yes, that's a big clarification. So before I get into color space transfer, I'll go back a little bit further. So when cameras are capturing light, they're capturing light in what's called a linear domain. So if you've ever seen like a light bulb, for instance, or let's take two light bulbs, for instance. So you have a light bulb that's 800 lumens and you have a light bulb that's 400 lumens, right? Now, when we're looking at these light bulbs, the one that's 800 lumens will be twice as bright as 400, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. However, when a camera captures that light, the camera is capturing it linearly, but because our displays can't show it, it has to cram this massive space down. I'll just go here. Again, this is all arbitrary, but it's capturing this big space and it's doing this, and it's cramming it down. And so what we do and then it like puts it into its log encoding or its Rec 709 encoding, and then basically what it's doing when we put it on a display and we're trying to look at it as it's supposed to be, then it just like expands that little space back out to here to as best it can to give us as accurate of a representation of the image as possible, right? That's actually physically what's happening. So cameras are capturing linear light. It's cramming that data down in here to something it can actually like use and capture, either in Rec 709 or in log encoding. By the way, hi Creative Video Tips. Anybody hasn't seen Chadwick's YouTube content? The man's an absolute genius. Go watch him. All right, so let's getting back to this. So we know we can use the data. So if we bring in a color space transform right here, we know exactly what this image was shot in. So I actually did this earlier today, funny enough, just as a fun little thing. We can put on a color space transform and we can tell it that we shot it in Canon Cinema Gannett as the input color space. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Tim, how do I know what my footage was shot in?
Yeah, ask your DP.
Well, what if I don't have a DP? What if I work for a gaming YouTuber who just said, "Can you please make this bang?" and then they give me footage?
So that's where it's like, if you don't have any sort of reference, you can kind of figure out by some of the like if you have metadata in the footage, that's always really helpful, because sometimes you can figure out like, okay, this is what this camera is because they have a specific naming convention or whatever. So you can kind of figure out the camera type. If you don't have the information, and like let's say you have a Blackmagic ProRes file and you have to sort through like the thousands of different Blackmagic different gammas or color spaces, that can be a pain. But usually if you have somebody that does shoot in this type of log space, you need to get the information from them, or you just have to kind of make your best guess based on the file type and stuff.
So let's say, because this is an area that I've had to deal with before, and it's where I've had a lot of problems with when I don't have this information to go off of, because I work with children. So let's say you do end up knowing the camera can one camera record in different
Yes.
color spaces.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Now there are some media info app can be some if metadata is baked in. Yes, that's true too. There are sometimes ways that you can pretty reasonably guess it. Like, for example, Panasonic, they have Vlog. That's it. It's either Vlog or some different flavor of Rec 709. Because any of like, if you've used a Panasonic camera, you've seen like their Cinelike V or Cinelike D and stuff. Those are different Rec 709 spaces with different interpretations of color. That's at its base level. That's really what those are. Same with Sony with like the what is it called? S-Cinetones. Those are also just still different flavors of Rec 709. Really, the only time that this comes into play is when it becomes actual log footage. So yeah, that's something that comes up quite often. Is we don't know like what exactly this camera shot in, and it really makes it a huge pain when I'm downloading log footage from Artlist and they have the camera, but that camera shoots in like 5 different spaces. I'm like, I have no idea, so I have to like do my best guess to try and figure it out. But
and this all, so just for my own clarification, this all relates back to what you're saying with the chromaticity, the CIE graph, where you're trying to figure out where your colors are actually sitting informationally wise, like how that data is sitting on that color spectrum, and you're trying to access it in the correct manner.
We're trying to find which one of these it is so we can correctly map this triangle to this triangle. Okay. That's effectively what we're doing.
If your stuff is already, if you're outputting a Rec 709 and you record it in Rec 709, then you don't need a CST.
Actually,
correct?
Yeah, you do. And there's a reason why, because somebody else asked the same question. I knew this was going to come up. And there's a reason why I say yes. Let me get to that point, because that's something I was planning on addressing, because I wish I had some Rec 709 footage in here.
I can give you some.
Yeah, send me some, and I can do an explanation as to why.
Can I just give you like a recording from like my desktop?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
But this whole thing that we're doing is explaining why color space transforms, or just not even just color space transforms, because there's actually multiple ways to do this type of thing. But it's just color management in general. The real purpose of color management, and the reason why we're talking about all this, and the reason why we're going into this much detail about the thing that's not even like touching the image yet, is because we're taking something that our camera sees and we're turning it into something our display can physically show, and we're putting it in a space where if we had multiple different cameras, let's say we had a Canon, we had a Sony, we had a Panasonic, and I've had multiple instances where this was the case. Some shot log, some shot Rec 709. You want to be able to put all of that stuff into the same exact space, so that when you're doing all of your grading and touching all of your tools react the same exact way, regardless of what camera source it came from. That's the whole purpose of this.
If I'm digesting what you're saying correctly, back here, I'm going to speak for my audience opposed to yours, because I feel like your audience is probably more working professionals. I think a lot of people that tend to come to my channel normally are like YouTube, we do OBS recordings, etc. So what you're saying though is that, let's say you have different kinds of footage. So you got Rec 709, you've got Sony Super Gamma 37 or whatever, and then Canon 69. What if you're trying to work with these different groups of footage? The goal is to set up a workflow that is predictable, because otherwise what's going to happen is, if you don't standardize how you start this process, when you go about altering your images in a way that you want to work in a specific way, it might not do it the way that you would like it to.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yes. So because I'm seeing in the chat, a lot of people are saying that I'm seeing a lot of the same comments, and I promise I'm going to get to this in just a second. And I'll explain why doing color management to Rec 709 footage is extremely beneficial. So let's really quick turn this into the space that it's supposed to be, so we can actually see what it's supposed to look like. So we have our Canon Cinema Gamma right here, our input gamma up here, because I know the chat's kind of blocking it a little bit. Our input gamma is going to be Canon log 2 or C log 2. And then our output color space, I'm going to change this in a second, but we're just going to see what our image actually is supposed to look like. Our output is what everybody probably predicts, Rec 709. Output gamma, you can either do 2.2 or 2.4. I prefer 2.4. Usually 2.2 is for web delivery, 2.4 is for broadcast. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I'm going to do gamma 2.4 for now. But now if you look at the image, we have a much more reasonable looking image. Like, we went from log to Rec 709, and now this is actually a lot closer to what it actually looked like. So 2.2 is for like YouTube video. Generally, yes. There's a whole other discussion on that. If we want to talk about it after the session, we can. But I have actually had a couple issues exporting 2.2 to YouTube because it tags it improperly. So that's a whole other discussion where we won't get into gamma tags today. It's not the point of this session.
What is the point, man? What is
the point? Is everything. Okay. So now, but this is essentially what we've done is we've gotten our Canon log footage and we put it into the space that our display is capable of showing, right? So we're going to expand on this a little bit more. So now we're actually going to completely wreck this, but also fix it at the same time. So instead of output color space to Rec 709, let's go ahead and do output color space to DaVinci wide gamut. And then our output gamma is going to be DaVinci intermediate. So it should look... So we've done that. We've put in DaVinci wide gamut. Now it looks flat again. What the heck? So now if we press Alt-S, or Option-S on a Mac, that'll create a new node. Instead of just dragging this and doing that whole thing again, we can just go ahead and copy this, Control-C or Command-C on a Mac, and paste. And then we can just hit this swap button on our color space transform. And then we can go back to the whole Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And now our image looks exactly the way that it did before. Now, does anybody have any guess as to why we're doing this, other than the people that actually already know this?
Whoa, yeah, I might need a breakdown on this one. So we got two color space transforms.
Yes.
The first is taking our camera's recorded color space and putting it in DaVinci super wide gamut. I'm
going to call it DaVinci super wide now. That's awesome.
DaVinci super wide. And then we have another one that's taking super wide and converting it back to monitor happy color space. Yes.
Domback, you are very close, so we can do something in between. Is that linear? Not quite, Lobo. We'll get into linear in a bit, but you're on the right track. Adjusting the color space is something to see more color. That's actually a very good way of putting it. All right, so you guys are basically on the right track. So depending on what color space you're in, because
you guys are so smart. My stream, us here in Wampus land, we're so smart.
We're going from this triangle, we're putting everything into this triangle, which it looks like it's smaller because of this whole thing, but this is actually a larger color space. You'll just have to take my word for that. So we're putting everything into this triangle, and then we're taking it from this, and then going down to Rec 709, right? Okay. That's what we've just done. So here's why we do this. Let's go ahead and put a node before, by pressing Shift-S, and then one node after using Alt-S.
Okay, so one node before the second CST and one after it.
Yes. Okay. So you should have your second color. Yeah, so you should have your color space transform here, and then you should have a node before it and a node after it. All right, now... Okay. Watch what happens on our waveform. I'm going to maximize this a bit so it's easier to see. Super waves. All right. So watch what happens when we move our let's just move our gain, the gain wheel, in the last node right here. So we're going to move this node, and we're going to move gain up. So as you can see, like our highlights are moving up, right? And we kind of hit this flat line here. Now let's go ahead and right click on this node, reset it. And now let's do that same exact thing, except in this node, the second node, before the color space transform, do that same adjustment with gain. Watch what happens to your waveform.
Holy piss.
Does everybody see it?
It like
It rolls off.
Yeah, it's like a parabolic, almost like compression of it.
Yeah. So what's actually happening is we're working, because this node is working in a significantly larger space. It's working with many more colors. So you're actually, instead of, let's say, in this node right here, in this one that's like after the CST, you're working in this 0 to 100 range. You're working from 0 to 100 when you move gain. That's why as soon as you move this up and it hits the top, it just flatlines. But in this node, in DaVinci Wide Gamut, you're not working from 0 to 100. You're working more like 0 to 10,000. That's what's happening.
That's how much you make in a week.
So that's why whenever we move this up, we're not flatlining. There's still detail here. So I can actually zoom into this and see like, oh, I know it's probably going to be like YouTube compressed like crazy, but there is still detail here, and you can see on your waveform, it's not flatlining. So you have much more room to work with. And somebody already kind of got ahead of it by saying linear. But because we've color managed this, we can actually go a step further with this.
So before we
go into that, go ahead. Yes.
So when you say color managed, that all that means is that we've set up the two color space transforms correctly.
Yes, color management is a bunch of different things. Color management can mean like you're doing it by project level, you're doing it by CSTs, you're using a LUT. All of that is a form of color management because you're managing colors that are in one space and you're putting it into a different space. That's what color management is in a nutshell. And you're taking it from this. There's three, well, really two. There's two different spaces. There's scene referred, also known as like camera referred or whatever, and there's display referred. So we're taking it from its scene referred or camera space, and we're putting it into our display referred space. You can also say there's a working space, and that's what DaVinci Wide Gamut is, because DaVinci Wide Gamut's not a camera space that you shoot in. It's the space that we work in, so we call it a working space. So we have our scene referred, which is camera, whatever the camera shot, and we have our working space, which is DaVinci Wide Gamut. Then we have our display space, which is what we deliver in Rec 79 Gamma 2.4. All right. Is any of this not making sense so far? Because we're about to go a little bit more into it, and so why this becomes so powerful so fast.
Okay, I'll let people type up some questions if they have some, but just for my own understanding, right? The thing that's important for me in YouTube land is understanding what our footage was shot in. Now, you could take technically. Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong, let's say I did do OBS recording, right? Like this was Rec 709 recording. I could take that as my input color space and gamma and put it into DaVinci Wide Gamut.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So
okay.
that brings it full circle. Yes. So that is why you would color manage Rec 709. Like, so even if everything you shot was Rec 709, this same concept that we just did with moving the gain and watching it roll off, that same concept still applies to Rec 709 space. That's why.
Oh, that's so sick. What?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Remember when I was telling you initially, like, no matter what kind of camera space or whatever you're working with, I work with it all exactly the same. This is why.
Oh, dude, I hate being a meatball, man. That's so sick. So, okay. Taking it just, again, for little simpleton Brandon's brain, taking a step back, First step, when we get our footage on the timeline and we're ready to go into color land, the first thing that we're going to do is set up our two CSTs and make sure that we're putting it into DaVinci super wide. And the way we do that is by understanding what our input color space is. For a lot of people in my stream, it's going to be Rec 709, Gamma 2.4.
Yeah, you could, if you aren't sure about the Gamma stuff, you can literally just do Rec 79 and Rec 709. You can do Rec 79 twice for both the color space and Gamma, and you'll be fine for your recording.
Okay.
Because now I have that clip, let me just show that. So let's go here to this Rec 709 clip, right? So I'm just going to set this up real quick. Again, you guys don't have to do this. I'm just doing this as an example. So Rec 709, whoops. DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. I'm going to copy this, make a new node, paste, swap. So, and again, because color space transforms are lossless, meaning you don't lose any data, I can turn these on and off. There's no change to the image whatsoever. But if I do that same gain adjustment, again, we'll pull up the waveform so we can see it. If I do the same gain adjustment before or afterwards, flat lines, before, rolls off. That's why. We're putting this triangle into this triangle. Yeah, that's what I found is an easier way to explain it, because like a lot of people will just see something like this on my screen right here and say, oh, that's just like, it's just a flat image so you can grade better. But what people don't realize is like this isn't actually what the image looks like.
Okay, this is my POV, guys. So I have the two color space transforms. I have Rec 709 to Gamma, and then Gamma back to Rec 709. And then if I do, oh, that is so, I mean, the image is super blown out, but you see how it's like, it's not going past the 100 line. Whereas if I did it on this one, like, oh, wow.
Right, is there any other questions on that specifically?
I think if we were to end just the webinar right here, that you just changed my life, because that.
Oh, we're just starting. We're just getting started, guys. There's a lot more. A lot more
that
fun,
is
and
so cool.
There's a lot more fun stuff I want to show. So I want to talk about a little bit about this concept called linear. So you know how I talked about earlier how when cameras are seeing light, they're taking it in linearly and they have to go like this and cram it into this. Well, what if we could reverse engineer that? The easy way to do that is if you're in a color managed space. So that means that you've told Resolve, hey, this is what I shot in. I shot in Canon. Now, what we used to have to do was do like another color space transform and then like do, DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. I'm showing you this right now. You don't have to do this part. There's a much easier way to do this. I'm just showing you so you can visually see what we're about to do. And then output Gamma to linear. So now we're actually seeing what it looks like in its linear state. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this node here.
What do you mean by linear state?
So linear is how cameras capture light. So if I put this in linear, that means that it's a...
What would that be opposed to?
That's like Gamma 1. Linear is literally Gamma 1.0.
Okay.
So it's a straight line. So you see this curve down here? This would be Gamma 1.0. Okay. If I brought it down to here, this would be like Gamma 2. I don't know what the exact curve is, but this is like Gamma 2.2, sure. Gamma 2.4, blah, blah, blah. But that's just measuring the curve. Linear is like what we see with our eyes.
Okay.
But again, but this is like showing, like our display can't show it because like you see how extremely crunchy it is. It's because our display can't show it. Now we don't need to do all these CSTs. This is just a visual representation. We're going to work in this, but without these. Okay. So I'm just showing you this for the visual, but what we're actually going to do is go and delete these. We can just right click on this node and we can go to Gamma and linear. And now we've just done that same exact thing we just did with two color space transforms on either side. This is just doing it all inside one node. Why do we go into linear though? Does anybody have any guesses as to why we want to go back into the space that the camera captured in? This is not a trick question, by the way. I don't expect people to get why.
I don't know if I'm completely 100% following the linear conversation.
Okay. So
I
because
don't
we're
know. That could just be me.
okay, yeah, this because we want to make changes before changing the color space. Not quite. Okay. Let's see. How can I explain this in a way to make sense? So
Maybe if you just say it again, like
yeah.
maybe it'll land.
Okay. So what we're doing with linear is we're reverse engineering the process essentially. So we've told with this CST, right? We've told Resolve what we've shot in. So we've shot in Canon Cinema, Canon C-Log 2. And because we've done that, we're able to tell it to go into linear. So we're going from where we're starting and we're going into linear. Now that means we're changing it to a linear gamma curve. You don't have to really understand what that means, but cameras capture in linear, right? So if we adjust gain inside of linear, now look how different our waveform responds. Do you know what's happening here? We are adjusting exposure exactly how we would adjust exposure in camera. This is simulating this is photometrically accurate exposure adjustments right here. That's what this is.
Yeah.
So if I was to adjust exposure in camera, this is exactly what it would look like. The reason that that's really, really nice is because, is this like saturation versus lumen? No, not quite. The reason that this is really nice to have is because you can, let's say you overexpose an image, but you want to like reduce your exposure, but you want to do it in the most accurate way possible. This is how you would do that. Because if you tried to do this just in like a regular space, let's just say, I'm just going to crank this up. Actually, no, I can't do that.
And so did you?
Here, I'm going to go over.
I might have. I'm sorry. I might have missed something. You didn't change anything on that node, or did you?
Yes, I did. Right click on the node, go to gamma, and select linear.
Got it. Okay, that's the missing piece because I was like, wait.
Yeah, that's
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
got it.
So similar to how you would adjust like in a camera raw tab, which we'll get to in a bit. You know how you can like adjust exposure in a raw tab. This linear gamma linear gain is exactly the same thing. So you can adjust. Okay. It's almost like, now again, if you clip your camera and stuff and you have the complete white spots and you try to bring down that exposure, you're not going to recover the data. It's because it's not there, right? But you can still like actually get something that's as accurate of an exposure adjustment as you can get. Because like if I was to go into Wampus's footage here and I wanted to try and bring down his exposure a little bit, well, that kind of works, but it also makes it kind of look flat. Or if I wanted to like increase my gain or increase my offset here, like that's kind of moving everything in a way I don't really want it to. But if I put this node into linear,
right,
notice how the blacks are retained.
You're a freaking genius. You know that?
So like all my black space, like of course this is a noisy shot, but that's not the point. But like you can notice these black areas, they still maintain their character. So it's like I can push exposure up quite a bit, and we still have our black areas maintained because this is simulating how we would increase and decrease exposure in camera, as opposed to like if I reset this entirely, now I'm not in linear, and then I tried moving this up. Notice how like now all these darker areas are like becoming more flat.
Yep, and noisy,
and the noise is being increased, and you can see it very much on the waveforms, like it's lifting our blacks up a lot. But if we do gamma linear, increase gain, notice how blacks are they're being maintained much more cleanly because we're doing a more accurate adjustment.
Okay.
So, all right.
I was going to ask a question. I'm sorry, I totally forgot. Go ahead.
No, you're good. There's an additional thing we can do with this too. So it's not just for exposure. There's an additional thing that this becomes really, really useful for. So we can do linear gamma and move our gain and exposure, But what if our white balance is wrong? Let's go back to Wampus's clip here, and we'll just
quick questions. When you're doing the linear gain changes, is there a reason why you're only using the you might have said this and I missed it, the gain primary wheel?
Yes. Because gain is a multiplier. So actually I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Lift, gamma, gain, and offset are just basic math adjustments. Okay. So whenever actually, let me just explain this. I'll get back to the linear thing in just a second. This is actually a good segue. Let me show you something kind of cool that's I find fun because I'm a nerd. But
you before you do that, Tim, do you mind seeing if anybody people have just questions, or do you want to get a drink of water real quick? Because brother, you have been spitting information.
I can go all night. I can.
Okay, all right. I just want to give you a chance to catch your breath.
No, I'm okay.
You've been.
No, I've gone 5 hours before without it. And it's probably not healthy, probably not the best idea, but I've done it. All right. So, all right, again, you don't have to copy this. This is just for example, right? So I'm going to turn off my webcam so you can see this better. So we have our lift, gamma, gain, and offset, right? They are just mathematical adjustments. That's all they are. So if I increase my gain is literally just a multiplier. That's why gain starts at 1, because anything multiplied by 1 is the same number, right? So if I set gain to 2, that means that this center point right here, where it's at 50, this center point will be 100 if I move gain to 2.
Like your slope.
Yep. So I put gain to 2. And now, 2 point whatever. But yeah, that middle point right here, that was 50. Now it's 100 because it's doubled. And then lift is the same thing as gain except the inverse. So it moves.
Oh, it's 1 over.
Yes, it's 1 over. Exactly. So if I move lift, see how it moves the exact same way, but the inverse direction. That's why lift moves this, because lift will never touch pure white, and gain will never touch pure black. You notice that? Whenever I move lift, white does not move. Whenever I move gain, black does not move.
Okay.
So anything that's perfectly black, gain will not touch because black is 0. If anything multiplied by 0 is 0. And lift is just it's the same thing, but just pure white. Blah, right? Blah, blah, blah. Gamma is interesting. Gamma is an exponential adjustment. So you'll notice as we move, and you can see how it makes a little curve here.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah. So you notice what two things are not moving?
0 and 1, the black and white point.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's 100% correct. Gamma will not move black and white, but it'll move everything in between.
So in Brendan's brain,
Billy got it.
I was doing an equation, if your output was Y, your lift and gain would be a constant out in front, and then X would be whatever that variable is, and then your gain is an exponential term. So it's like that. It's
in Brandon brain that works. It's actually much more complex than how I think of it, but yes.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's how I'm the.
Yeah, no, that's right. You're exactly right though. Okay. All right. Now, as a fun little test here, I'm going to move offset. Does anybody want to take a stab at what mathematical operation offset is doing? Just by looking at this.
It would be a constant, so it would be the plus B.
Addition is right. Yes. You got it. I was just waiting for chat to catch up with it. But yes, addition is correct. Offset is addition.
Can you do that one more time? I boofed on my stream.
Yeah. Addition of yeah. Or I guess in some ways that Galdo Hendrickson likes to put it, it's the addition of positive and negative numbers. That is offset. But yeah, that is correct. So that is lift, gamma, gain, and offset in a nutshell. You can also use this to determine your contrast as well, so you can physically see what your contrast is doing. And you can adjust your pivot point to see like how it moves contrast. Now, the funny thing is like I rarely use the contrast curve, but you can see what it does.
All right, I've got it figured out. So the equation is y equals c over d times whatever your x pixel is raised to the a power, which is your gamma, plus b, which is your offset.
Are we talking about middle gray? We have not talked about middle gray yet, but we might get to it. We'll see.
We're geniuses.
All right. Yes, you did great. What is different? You change exposure on the log color wheels. So those are different. So the funny thing is like,
are you guys following me? It makes sense to me. I'm in. I got it. Learned.
The difference is like these
knowledge acquired.
Part of the image, not the whole image. That's really the biggest difference. Or same with the HDR wheels. They only touch a part of the image, not the whole image. Okay. So the other advantage we have with working in linear, not just with exposure, but we can also adjust our white balance. So let's go. I'm actually going to go back to your clip because this is actually a better way of showing it. So if let's say we accidentally like messed up our white balance here, this is where we could actually go down here and bring in our vector scope. And I'll go ahead and hit this drop down menu down here, or not that one, this one, the drop up menu, and hit show skin tone indicator. That way I can better see where his skin tone is at, and maybe it's like a little red or the overall tone is a little warm. Now, not going to get too much into what this parameter does here, but whenever I adjust stuff in color, I will usually turn my loom mix off. Loom mix basically is just in short, again, you don't have to understand this part. It's not super important, but it's the amount of influence the luminance channel on your lift, gamma, gain, offset, and just your curves in general has on the overall red, green, and blue mix. So if I as an example, like if I move just the, here, I'll do this so you can see it better. So if I move just this luminance channel, we're just moving the luminance up and down. But if I turn loom mix off, then this will have no effect whatsoever because the loom mix is turned off. Now, the reason I do that in linear is because if I am adjusting my color balance and the luminance is being moved while I'm just trying to adjust color. So that's just a helpful thing to know. But okay, so we've gone back to linear gamma, and now we just do the same thing we did with exposure, except now we just move the color wheel, and now we can adjust our white balance, green, magenta shift, whatever, with linear gain, and we're also simulating white balance, green, magenta shift, all that stuff, as it would be in camera. So we actually have a much more accurate way of fixing that. So now we have a much more normalized image as opposed to that.
Do that one more time for me.
Okay. So we start with setting the node to linear gamma.
Yep.
We turn loom mix off. Yep. And then we just drag our gain color.
Loom mix off because gain is a multiplier.
Yep. So, and because we're working in a linear domain 1.0, that's why it's working that way. And now if we can look at our vector scope and see where colors are shifting, but this is like very different behavior. So we can try to do the same thing with offset. So I'll go ahead and disable that. And if we try to do the same thing, again, we're not in any specific color space. If we try to do the same thing with offset, we can get kind of close, but you'll notice that like it's not quite hitting the same spot because it's shifting everything with addition, right? So it's almost, we're getting this like little green cast or something. So even though our white balance is basically the same on the skin, this one gives us a lot more of a natural look. Doesn't have that same cast over the image that this one does.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Mine looks literally within like 2 seconds. Mine looks so much better. The shortcut to disable and enable is Control D. Control P.
Oh, yes. I totally didn't explain that. Yeah, Control or Command D will disable the node or nodes that you have selected.
So this is
And
my
then
before and then after.
Alt D will do all of the nodes on the page.
Wow. Yeah, it looks so much. So, okay. The question that people probably aren't asking or saying, but probably do, including good old B. Rannon over here, is, so do we do this to white balance every time as opposed to changing temp and tint?
Yes. So here's the interesting thing about the other parts of the primaries. So temp and tint are also multipliers, but just in those respective areas. They're literally just gained. Okay. They're literally gains for just those colors. Temp, tint,
on the blue yellow space.
Right. So theoretically, you could probably just move the temp and tint in that space and it would function the same way, but you're moving two different things and that becomes a lot more time consuming. And you can only move in one direction, whereas opposed to like if you're just moving the gain wheel, you can move in any direction and get to your destination a lot quicker. So I never touch temp and tint ever.
Okay. Dom has a good question. So when you're looking to adjust your gain, what are we kind of aiming for when we're looking at our vector scope?
So that is actually a good question. So that depends. If you're trying to normally, so in this part, this is the part that I would consider the correction aspect. So in this case, we're either trying to center it, or we're trying to get our skin tone in the right area, because skin tone usually is the priority. But it also depends on like if you're trying to imply a specific look. Like let's say you want to give like a nice teal look, but you want to still have like skin tone in the right spot. Like I can shift it down here, give it kind of like this little look, but our skin tone is actually still kind of correct. Well, it actually might be shifting towards magenta, but like if we shift it over here, like we can imply a look onto the footage very simply just by doing something like that. So you can use it as a correction or you can use it as a grade, but this is how I would like imply a very, very basic look. So you can use it in multiple facets. And then sleeveless has I'll address this real quick because I do want to clarify something here. So HDR wheel and global adjustment, the difference. Yeah, so the HDR global, what he means is this tab right down here. So there's the HDR wheels, and then there's the global tab, and then there's exposure here. This is the same adjustment as linear gain, but I don't use it just because I already have my nodes set to primary, so I don't have to switch between the menus. But if you were to set a node up and right click it, set the gamma to linear, that's the same exact thing as if I was here. There's a part of this I probably should have mentioned before. So let's say, all right, this one is linear. This one has nothing on it. I'm going to go ahead and branch these off real quick. All right. So this one, if I put this up to a gain of 2, so this is one stop. So the way that this is measured when you're working in linear gain is 2 to the power of 1. So basically, like every time gain doubles, that's one stop. So if I did that in this node right here, let's just go ahead and bring this exposure. This is HDR global. If I bring exposure up one stop, it's not connected. Whoops. So if I switch between these two, it's the same. So it's literally the same exact adjustment. So if HDR global, I switch it to 2 stops, I would have to set linear gain to 4. So if I set this all the way up to 4, HDR global is 2. These are the same as well. And the other thing is HDR wheels are what are called color space aware. So they actually will behave the same no matter what color space you're working in. So they adjust how they behave so that no matter what color space you're working in, these wheels actually move the exact same way, which is kind of interesting. Can you explain the skin color, anything we aim to do with it? So the skin tone indicator on the vector scope, this is just a guideline. This is a guideline to where like skin tones usually land at any given point. So if I'm trying to find out where this is, so his skin's actually like leaning a little bit towards red. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and this is one of the things why, like I mentioned, it's used as more of a guideline, because some people's natural skin pigment is a little bit more red or a little bit more magenta than other people's. Some people lean a little bit more yellow or green. So again, this is not like a hard rule that you have to like land on the skin tone indicator, or it's not good balance. It's just like an average. It's like a pretty much agreed upon standard for where skin tone usually goes. Now that we understand, like, okay, this is why we're putting an image into this space, this is how these spaces work, then it makes the rest of the stuff that we're doing, these adjustments that when we actually set up our color adjustments and we actually like, go in and do them, and like are really simple, but it takes a lot to get to that point to understand it. So all right, let me think if there's any like key things I want to bring up with all of this stuff. Oh, yes, saturation. I almost forgot about this part. Okay. This is another key thing. Okay. There are a lot of different ways to measure saturation. Sleeveless already knows where I'm going with this. He's got it already. He knows. Okay. So saturation is also basically a gain adjustment. It's a saturation multiplier, which means it's the worst way to adjust saturation. Never touch this knob. So I'll explain this in a little more detail. So basically what that means is so if we look at this vector scope and we increase our saturation, what it's doing is it's making the most saturated colors more saturated. And that makes it look very video-y, and it's very, very unpleasant, right? It just looks garish. It's ugly looking. The first thing that was ever put in place to kind of solve for this was this color boost. Color boost is a little bit better. So it's not quite a multiplier. It's like almost like that exponential adjustment. It's almost like the gamma to the gain. But it's also not quite great. It's a little better, but I would still never touch it. Now, what the concept that we haven't really talked about yet has to do with the differences between digital and film. And there's a huge reason why we're going into this, because this will make a lot more conceptual sense. Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. This is actually a lot easier to understand than color spaces and stuff. A lot easier, trust me. So when you have film and you have or print and stuff, what do you start with? White, right? So when you start with white, how do you get color? Like if you're going to buy printer ink and you want color printer ink, what are the three colors that come with it? I'll give you a hint. It's the opposite of red, green, and blue. Cyan, magenta, yellow. And the reason being is because the way that print or film gets any sort of saturation or any sort of color is it's subtracting from white, right? So when you're looking at a printer image or something, you're looking at the cyan, magenta, yellow pigments of a little ink that are subtracting light away and when it comes back to your eyes, you get color. That's just how printers and film and all that stuff works. Now when it comes to a digital space, or when you're looking at your monitors, what space does that start with? It starts with black.
Idea.
It starts with black.
Okay.
Because when there's nothing on the screen, it's fully black. Now, how do you get color in a digital space? You have to
RGB.
Yep, you have to add red, green, and blue. Now, here's where the problem kicks in. Because we have to add red, green, and blue. If you get to a certain point where you're pushing the colors too far, you go beyond the clipping point.
Right.
That's what this is. So when we're adjusting saturation here, we're increasing red, green, and blue. So we're adding saturation. We're using it in an additive space. But if we want to do like film or print, we can do what's called subtractive saturation. Okay. And thankfully, there's a couple ways of doing it. The color slice tool actually operates in that subtractive mode, but it has multiple dials, and we don't really need to get into all of the color slice stuff today unless we want to. But what we can do is we can actually right click on the node,
Right.
go to color space, and then we see what Sleeves has already pointed out, HSV. You'll notice that there's HSL, but that's a slightly different color model, and I'll show you the difference between them actually, just for fun. You guys again don't have to understand this part.
Am I still gamma linear or no?
That won't matter. It overwrites the gamma because there's a certain thing that this does, which is also really fun. Trust me, it is fun. Okay.
Yep. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Go back to this and then pull this one up. Okay. Let me close that out. Close that out. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull this up on screen here. Okay.
Oh, careful.
Yeah. So yeah, I know. But we're basically looking at 3 color properties: the hue, the saturation, and the brightness, right? So this is HSL. This is HSV. Now, the difference between them is this third value. So you have hue and saturation. The third value is what's different. So you have lightness for HSL or luminance, and you have V for value. Now, what what this means is for HSV, the max value of a color, or the max value, is the max saturation, whereas max lightness is white. And then max saturation is actually 50%. But now why does this matter? Why does this translate to this? Well, that means that when we increase saturation in HSV, we're not increasing luminance.
When we're increasing saturation in HSV, we are not changing luminance.
Well, we are changing luminance. We're not increasing luminance. We're decreasing it.
Decreasing luminance.
So let me show you. I'm just going to do this outside of a color managed workflow. So I'm doing this in here. I'll switch between HSL and HSV. This will be a good way to show it. So I'm going to look at the waveform here. So I'm going to switch this to HSL because HSL is actually very, very similar to how this saturation knob works. So what's the interesting thing about these color spaces, HSL and HSV, and why the gamma doesn't matter is because the dials down here, your lift, gamma, gain, and offset, the red, green, and blue are no longer red, green, and blue. They're actually hue, saturation, and value, or hue, saturation, luminance. So red's
lift, gamma, gain.
Yes, under those. So just any of like red, green, and blue channels. So. So basically red becomes hue, green becomes saturation, and blue becomes either lightness or value, depending on which one you do. So if I only adjust green, that means I'm only adjusting saturation, or if I'm only adjusting blue, that means I'm only adjusting luminance. So all right, so we are in HSL right now. HSL is an additive saturation space. Now watch the waveform whenever I increase saturation. We see colors going up and down, right?
Yup.
Because this is an additive model. Additive models attempt to separate the red, green, and blue to try and increase saturation. Now, let's switch this to HSV. And now let's add saturation and gain this time. Notice something? None of the colors go up. That is how subtractive saturation works. Basically, you're not going to clip your colors upward if you do that. No, so sleeveless, so some people do that. I personally don't. What sleeveless is referring to is usually when people do this, they'll right click on the node and they'll turn off channels 1 and 2. Or sorry, 1 and 3, so that they can move the whole wheel and do the same exact thing.
It's only messing with saturation.
That just means it's disabling the red and blue channels. That's what this means. But when you have a middle and you just only move the green one, it's doing the same exact thing.
Okay, so just a quick recap. What we're doing right now is by default, when your color space is sRGB.
I mean. Default, no. It's whatever you're setting here. So when it says use timeline, That's what it's whatever it's currently set to here, which in this case is DaVinci Wide Gamut.
Okay. But DaVinci Wide Gamut uses RGB. Okay. And so when we change the color space, what we're doing is we're flipping a switch for our RGB sliders, controls, that changes it. Instead of changing red values, blue values, green values, we're changing hue, saturation, value.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And there are only 4 color spaces that do this. And if we actually wanted to visualize what this looked like, here's actually what it looks like. So if I put this color space transform in here, go from DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Immediate, and I'll just go straight into where is it? HSV. That's what it looks like.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's mapping the values in a different way, so that if I'm increasing like one channel, it's mapping it so that when it goes back into DaVinci Wide Gamut Immediate, it looks at how this was mapped and changes either the hue, saturation, or value based on what it sees here.
Why is my mustache so green though? Okay.
So yeah, that's what's happening there. So, and that's what it looks like. So you go into that and then out of it, and then that's how we approach what we do. But yeah, so anyways, all that being said, that's why I basically only ever adjust saturation in HSV, is because like it gives us a much more like filmic type of saturation, because that's essentially, it's really close to how film actually does that. Now,
you use gain because it's a multiplying.
Yeah,
slider.
gain and gamma, but not lift or offset.
Because lifts.
There's an interesting answer to why this is. What is the thing that lift and offset move that gamma and gain do not?
Lift and offset both move the 0 point.
Yep. That's exactly it.
So if you're dividing by 0, you get weirdness.
Yeah, because if you increase a saturation of 0, your image breaks. Because there's no saturation. So
you broke my image.
Yep. So, but this is and here's the fun part. So if you do this in your custom curves and you switch it to just your green channel, you can basically like create a saturation curve.
Oh, what? Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, this can be fun. So like you can like increase it in your lower areas, decrease it in the high areas to kind of like compress your saturation a bit.
Oh yeah. I'm here for this.
Yeah, it's basically the same as doing it with gain and gamma too. So if I decrease it in gain and then increase it in gamma, it's similar, but it's less of a curve control. But yeah, it's doing the same thing.
Oh, that's so sick. You're so smart.
Now, here's the only downside of how subtractive saturation works in this model. When you decrease saturation and gain, you unfortunately do increase the luminance of your colors. So what I usually do is I actually usually add a parallel node, and we can get into like what all the different nodes do if you guys are curious. But I'll set a parallel node, and basically what a parallel node is that these two nodes are operating independent of each other. So they're receiving the same image, but they're doing adjustments that don't touch each other, and then they just merge back together. So you can do like that way, you can do stuff here, but you can do additional adjustments down here that aren't affected by this. Because every time you make a new node and you send that out to the next one, that node is receiving a new image, basically. It's the same way that Fusion works, where every time you send a one node to the next one, it's creating a new image, and then whatever adjustments you do operate on that image. The color page works the same way.
How does it combine them?
It uses this. It just blends them. So there's...
Is it like just an average?
Yeah.
Okay.
For a parallel mixer, yes. It basically blends them as an average. A layer mixer does not. A layer mixer uses compositing modes, but that's a little bit more than what I rarely use layer mixers because you can just right click and just select composite mode on the node itself. So, but there's still use cases.
can you change the mix blend on the parallel node?
Like change it to a layer mixer? Yes.
So like,
Like how it
so
blends? No.
like a blend slider for like how much like my prioritizing one versus the other.
I mean, what you can do is you can select either node, and then there's this this key window here. You can select that, and then on key output gain, you can bring that down, and that'll reduce that node's influence.
Okay.
So that's how you would do that, basically.
Okay.
But here's a fun little trick that I found. Are you familiar with the term density?
I am in that it's mass divided by volume.
Okay. So density in film basically refers to like the lowering the it's reducing luminance on more saturated colors. So you know how you have like the red is a good example, like how you can have like a deep rich red look that doesn't look like overly poppy. It's like a deep rich, almost like a refined maroon red type of look.
Okay.
Here actually I can show that on this one over here. So so I'm just going to increase my saturation a bit on this one. So let's say I wanted to like increase the red density on this. Just go ahead and make a new node here. I'll just do that on the color slice, but density is like, let's say I increase, so I can, decreasing density will increase the luminance of the saturated colors. Increasing density will like increase or decrease the luminance on more saturated colors. So you can, so it looks less video-y, and it's like a film attribute basically. So that's what's happening here.
Changing the density increases the saturation?
No, it's increasing density reduces the luminance of more saturated colors.
Reduces the luminance of more saturated colors, reducing density
increases the luminance.
Increases the luminance on more saturated.
Yeah.
Colors.
The more saturated the color is, the usually the more it's affected by density. But anyways, I say that
Okay.
I say that because if we go back to our example over here, this is just a fun thing I like doing. If I change my one color space to HSV, and then on the parallel node, the bottom one, I change color space to HSL, what I'll do is I'll subtract saturation from HSL, and then I'll increase saturation in HSV. And then if I get the net change of that, it basically is a cheap density adjustment.
Okay, one more time. So
the top node is HSV, bottom node HSL.
Okay.
So we decrease saturation in HSL, and we increase it in HSV.
An equal amount?
You can. That'll, if you do it in equal amount, that'll just give you a straight up density adjustment. Yes.
Got it. Okay. I'm following in on my own screen.
So you can shape your saturation and density at the same time by decreasing it, decreasing saturation in HSL, increase saturation in HSV. There you go.
Okay.
Fun. Want to talk about something that is really useful when you have multiple cameras. So you'll notice that we have 5 shots, because one of them, I just realized something. Have we been... I am a goon. This first shot was Apple log. That's funny. Okay. Let me change that. That's embarrassing. Okay. So the Apple log, just for clarification, the Apple log that I shot in is Rec 2020 Apple log.
So we're changing our color space to Rec 2020 Apple log. Okay.
So I was wondering why the adjustment looked a little weird before, but yeah. Let's go over workflow real quick.
Okay.
Because there's a couple more nice things that are good to have. Also, I'll talk about group nodes, and I'll talk about working with raw footage.
Okay. I'll let you do your thing. I will I'll try to follow along.
All right, cool. Okay, so we notice I'm just going to disable these for now. And I did that just by using the toggle enable disable clip here. All right, so we notice we have these 4 shots here in the timeline, right? The ones that all start with C. These are all Canon C-Log footage. Now, I don't want to necessarily have to do repeat the same things over and over again. So what I can do is I can pull up my clips here, and we do have a mix of raw and non-raw footage, but they're all basically the same thing. What I can do is I can highlight all of them by just clicking on one, shift-clicking the rest, and then I can right-click and then go into add into a new group. I'll just call this group Canon. And you'll notice it almost looks like nothing changed except for up here. We have 4 tabs now instead of 2.
Okay, so you got your 4 clips, selected them, and then add group?
Yes. Add into, you can either do current group or add into a new group.
All the Canon footage.
All the Canon footage specifically.
Okay.
And what that's done is that has given us 2 new tabs, and you can see them right here. We have group pre-clip and group post-clip. And what that means is that anything we do in this group pre-clip or group post-clip goes into every single clip that's in that group. So if I have a bunch of Canon footage and I don't want to have to copy paste the nodes over and over again to every one, I can just put them all into a group. And now if I just add this color space transform, we'll once again go Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon Log 2, DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. I can copy this node, and then I'll go to group post clip, the 3rd tab. I'll go ahead and paste that so that we have another color space transform here. And so we have DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate, and then Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon Log 2. We'll switch this to Rec 709, Gamma 24. And now it's that way for every single clip. So we've just color managed all 4 clips at the same time. And any adjustment that we do to any of them, so let's just say we go gamma linear, I'm just doing something, you don't have to do the exact same thing, but any adjustment you do, you'll notice it's affecting all 4 clips at the same time. And this is really, really helpful if you have a number of different clips from the same camera type. You can color manage them all the same so that you can just work on them individually just from an adjustment or correction level, and you don't have to color manage them all individually.
And you put these in Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon Log 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, these are all C-Log 2 clips.
Okay.
And then if we go to just the clip one, so just clip by itself, now I can make adjustments just to this one, but that doesn't affect any of the other ones. So this is a way to separate them.
If you change that drop down menu or the little dots to be clip.
So the first one is group pre-clip, second one's clip, third one's group post-clip, and then the fourth one's timeline, which I almost never use just because it affects graphics too. So I just stick with these 3. And then let's say, here's another interesting thing. If we know that on our group post clip for every single camera, it's always going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate with the same output color space, because in our post clips,
bald by camera, Tim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for everybody that's following, everybody saying hi. Thank you so much. The screen's a little bit laggy, but I appreciate you all. Just wanted to point that out. But what we can do, instead of repeating this, and let's say we wanted to put in I don't know, a split tone effect, and then we wanted to put that on every single one, and we wanted to use the same color space transform on every one. And what we can do is we can actually right click on the node, and we can select save as shared node. And then we can, and it's automatic, for some reason it automatically not for some reason, there's a good reason, it's kind of for safety, but shared nodes will automatically lock when you create them, so you can just right click and then select lock node. But now I can go into any other clip. So like if I went back to this original one here, and let's just say I put this in its own group here. So I'll just call this Apple. And I know I'm going pretty fast, but I'm just trying to explain this as quick as I can. But I can, in this group post clip, add that shared node. Once again, unlock it. And now I have the same exact node. And even though these aren't in the same group, any changes I make to this, any changes I make to this, even though they're not in the same group, it'll still be reflected in all the other clips. So you can apply
like
this. So you can apply the same look. So if I wanted to do the split tone, so let me just search for. Actually, I can. Yeah, I'll search a split tone effect. So let's just put split tone on here. And I just like make it really strong. Blah blah blah. And just do something like that. I don't know. Again, this is just for example. But I can right click and save this as a shared node. I can unlock it. And I'll just go ahead and rename this by selecting node label, and I'll just call this split. And then I can go into any of my Canon ones and just go ahead and add that node split. And now any changes I make, once again, will be reflected in all the clips regardless of whether or not they're in the same group. So that's a way you can apply the same look to every single camera, but let's say there's like specific things you need to color manage them differently because this is a different camera than this. So you would group them all by camera, but then you can do like shared nodes that you can share across all of the groups, so that when you change one, you're not changing the look for just one group, you're changing them for all of them.
Got it.
So it's basically like instancing. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
So how about this, Tim? Unless there's something you really wanted to talk about before we close out, and I'll let you do that. Before we kind of begin to wrap things up, would you be open to just like if you were to get footage brand new? So like, let's say you just got this Canon footage. Could you maybe walk through exactly what you would do for, like, let's say these 4 sets of clips? So like, let's say just like a really simple basic color correction / color grade, and you can go as fast as you'd like, but just to kind of recap all the things that we've talked about.
Okay. Yeah. So here's what I'll do. So I'll start from a fresh timeline here. Okay. So I'm going to bring in these clips here, and this timeline is actually the incorrect resolution. Lol. Okay. There we go. DCI. Perfect. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is color manage my clips or just group them. So first thing I do is go ahead and just group them all. So I'll just add to a new group. I know they're Fuji's, so I'm just going to select Fuji. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring my color space transform in here, and we'll just go Rex 2020, Fujifilm F-Log, and then we'll go DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. And then in my group post clip, I actually have this saved as a power grade. So I will just use my, not the clip template, actually. That's the wrong one. Oh, I forgot. I didn't update the locations. It's going to freak out for a second. Okay. So instead of a color space transform for the output, I actually have a DCTL that I use. So I use this one right here. It's called the JP2499 DRT. It's basically an output transform that does a similar thing that the color space transform does, except I like how it renders a little bit better. So I put this in, and then sometimes I'll go ahead and let's just add a, which one do I want to go with here?
So this is like is it like a macro for color space transforms?
Yeah, well, DCTLs are like custom coded, like people can create their own color tools with DCTLs that you don't get natively inside of Resolve. So okay. Yeah, that takes a long time to explain. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and just do, I know I want to have a split tone that's somewhat like this, and so basically I'm reducing the blue and green on the high end, and I'm reducing the red and green on the low end. And this will give me kind of like a nice little split tone here, right? So that gives me the rough look. I might reduce it a little bit because it is a bit strong. And then I might even do one more.
This is all on the post clip.
This is all in post clip because I'm just setting up the look right now. So I want to see if there's anything else I want to do to it. Maybe I'll add the saturator in here. And again, these are different tools.
That's what I'm kind of thinking, Lobo. I think in DCTLs are like user built tools. So like
creating a look is that you're doing some
macros, templates, fuses, but for the color page. So it sounds like people come up with their own color space transform presets, and that's what they use for a DCTL. I think it probably would have been better to stick with the color space transform for us simpletons, but we'll let Tim rock.
I'll just replace them, and it's not a big deal. So I already have my tree built out so that this exposure and balance are both already in linear. I have my HSV and HSL, and then I have my primaries. And then I have, this is actually supposed to be, where is it? This one, and then this one is actually correct. Okay, perfect.
And again, DCTL is just, it's like a user built function for the color page.
Correct. Yeah, it's DaVinci's own language. It's very similar to C if anybody is familiar with programming. But I'll look at this and say, okay, the face is probably a little overexposed. I want to create a little bit more of a mood. So I'll go ahead and reduce this exposure by about a stop. And then I'll go into my primaries. And then I'm just going to create like a little bit of a little mood here, and then lift the shadows up and see if that's how, just to create a little bit more pop here. I think that's kind of how I want it. Then we'll go into the balance. I'm just going to go into my vector scope, might pull it out so it's easier to see. I'm seeing the colors of my skin is shifting a little towards the yellow side, so I'm going to go ahead into my balance, bring this over just a touch, kind of balance that out a little bit. Kind of like that cooler feel because it was snowing out there, but I want to keep my skin tone intact. There's also a DCTL I really like to use that helps me see color balance. There's also a free one that Pixel Tools, I think, created. But this allows me to see my skin tones in a... and I can see like the before and after. So if I'm looking at it and it's yellow, that means it's like on the skin tone line. If it's the magenta, that means it's shifting over towards magenta. If it's green, it means it's shifting over towards green. So this is a really good way to monitor where my skin tones are going. But that's a pretty good balance.
How did you do that split view?
So on this mono balance node, I can just hit split. I can check this box and it does it. Again, it's part of the coding for it. And then I'll probably increase my saturation a little bit. And then if I want to do any fine tunings, I don't know if maybe I'll just like add a power window here or something. Come on. And then I might even put this into linear too, so I can just reduce the effect of the, I have to invert that. Reduce the effect of the window a little bit, not by much. So just pull that over here. And then,
I've
before,
never used the gradient
after.
tool.
So that's how I would quickly tackle a grade.
You're so smart and talented.
Again, this isn't like a fantastic grade or anything, but that's just how I go about it and do it quickly.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to refine it, like I wanted to pull out my shirt a little bit more, I could
You gonna pull your shirt out?
Yes, pull my shirt off. Yes. So I could brighten up my skin tone if I wanted to, make it a little more saturated. Or if I wanted to I don't know, to play with the greens or something, I could do a little bit. So that makes my skin to pop out a little bit more. So it's I go and I fine tune things I think might need fine tuning. So yeah, again, it's a simple grade, but yeah. And then if I need to paste this, because now that these other ones don't have it, I can just highlight the two that don't have it, and I can either right click and select apply grade, or I can middle click. and now they have it too.
Oh.
And then for this one, I'll probably want to move this power window because
Right.
it was over here, but I can do that. And then now I notice that this one looks different, so I can actually I'll just highlight this one, and I can hit the split screen view up here at the top.
Of course you can.
And then select selected clips. Now I can look at them both at the same time, and they definitely look different. So I'll adjust this one at a clip level.
Can you mind doing that one more time for me?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So first thing I do is I select both clips. So I make sure the one that's highlighted in this highlight is the one I'm adjusting. I control click this one that I want to compare it to. I go up to the split screen option right here. And then I bring then this menu to make sure selected clips is highlighted. And now I can see both of them. And so I notice that this is the one I want to match to. This one is definitely wrong. But because we have our nice little exposure and balance tools, I know, let's go to my waveform here. And it actually, you can see it splits them down the middle. So if I move the exposure on this one, it only moves the right side. So I can actually just match it. I can match it with the other one. So it's like roughly like...
You're so smart.
Here or something. So it's like here, roughly. And then I can go to my balance node. And then I switch to my vector scope. And you'll see this overlaps too. So I can just move this. And then I can just move this until those roughly match, like right there. And there you go.
So that is how you color match shots.
Yes.
Dude, you're a genius.
Yeah. And also, and this Tetra node, like if you're using different cameras, because like color space transforms aren't perfect, this Tetra DCTL is like the best tool that I've ever used for camera matching. Okay, I'm just going to geek out with one more thing here. I'll do it on this one. All right, so this Tetra DCTL is basically, it stands for tetrahedral interpolation. Try saying that 5 times fast, $5 to whoever can. Just kidding. So basically what this is doing, it looks really confusing, but all it's really doing is just saying, let's take our red or green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow vector, and we'll shift it across either the red, green, or blue channel. Now, how does that look? Well, let's just say we take let's just take this red, for example. So anything in the red vector, we can move it either along the red and cyan axis, if I move this, the green and magenta axis, or the blue and yellow axis. And I can take any other color for that. So let's take cyan as an example. So let's go down to cyan. So if I move cyan red, that means it's going to move this cyan vector along the red and cyan axis. So let's just go ahead and move cyan red. Moves along that red and cyan axis, and then the cyan green will move it this way. So we move cyan green, and then cyan blue, same thing along the blue and yellow. And so this makes it really, really easy if you're looking at that split view. So if I have these up here and I needed to match them specifically, I could look at this and say, okay, I need to match this and just move it over here along this green. Oh, look, perfect.
Oh.
So yeah, I love Tetris.
Yeah, that is incredible.
If you have Studio. That's the caveat, is DCTLs are Studio only, but if you have Studio, there's a lot of good free ones that are really, really fun.
Gotcha.
Okay. That is color.
And there you go. Whew. All of Tim's information is going to be in the description and in the pinned comment. If you guys did make it to the end of this video, first, I'd give yourself a chance to digest that information, because that's what I've been doing the last few days, is just going back through and trying to understand everything Tim went over. If you guys do have questions, feel free to leave a comment or go over to Tim's channel, ask him, or the next time we do one of these color sessions, come prepared and we could try to answer some of those questions for you guys. But regardless, thank you guys for making it to the end of the video. You are a superhero, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.